And now let us deal with other lexical stylistic devices. Intensification of a feature, simile. The reader's understanding is immeasurably increased if he is familiar with the many techniques or devices of poetry. Some of these are extremely simple, a few are rather elaborate. The simplest and also the most effective poetic device is the use of comparison. It might almost be said that poetry is founded on two main means of comparing things, simile and metaphor. Simile is a comparison between two things, a thought or message conveyed by the writer to the reader. Here one should be careful not to confuse ordinary comparison and simile. And now let us take an example. My sister is as clever as your teacher. In this sentence, two objects, sister and teacher, belong to the same, to one class of things, with the purpose of establishing the degree of sameness. That is why the example above is an ordinary comparison. And now let us take such an example. She is like a rose. The two objects belong entirely to different class of things, and it is not an ordinary comparison, but already a simile. In English, a simile is expressed by the words like or as. For example, he had a posture like a question mark. He fights like a lion. He swims as fast as a fish. She slithers like a snake. She walks as gracefully and elegantly as a cat. He was as a lion in the fight. We heighten our ordinary speech by the continual use of such comparisons as fresh as a daisy, tough as leather, comfortable as an old shoe, it fits like the paper on the wall, gay as a lark, happy as a day is long, pretty as a picture. As you noticed, similes have recognizable structure. They use the words is or like. And now about the difference between metaphor and simile. If metaphors equate two ideas despite their differences, similes allow the two ideas to remain distinct in spite of their similarities. For example, if we want to compare a woman to a rose, a metaphor might read something like, she is a rose, and the simile, she is like a rose. A metaphor is actually a condensed simile, for it omits as or like. The most commonplace similes offer a window into the stereotypes that pervade a given language and culture. For example, the following similes convey a stereotypical view of people, animals, and things. As precise as a surgeon, as regular as a clock, as cunning as a fox, as strong as an ox, as sour as vinegar, as quiet as a mouse. These similes have the status of a cliché or platitude in English, and their use is typically taken to signify a lack of creative imagination. Some stereotypical similes express viewpoints that are technically incorrect, but which are widespread in a culture, such as cruel as a wolf, as stubborn as a goat, as drunk as a skunk, as violent as a gorilla, as proud as a peacock. Similes do not have to be accurate to be meaningful or useful. To be as proud as a peacock is to be very proud, whether peacocks actually do exhibit pride or not. What matters is that peacocks are commonly believed to be exemplary examples of proud behavior. Main stylistic function of a simile is the intensification of some feature of the concept. And now about hyperbole. Hyperbole is another lexical stylistic device with the function of intensification. It is a deliberate overstatement or exaggeration, the aim of which is to intensify one of the features of the object in question to such a degree as to sometimes show its utter absurdity. It is aimed at exaggerating quantity or quality, and it is one of the common expressive means of our everyday speech. For example, I have told you thousands of times. Or I have never loved anyone in the world but you. Due to long and repeated use, hyperboles have lost their originality. Thus, like many stylistic devices, hyperbole may lose its quality of a genuine stylistic device through frequent repetition. Here we have some examples. 1,000 pardons, scared to death, immensely obliged. So hyperbole is a device which sharpens the reader's ability to make a logical assessment of the utterance through deliberate exaggeration. Hyperbole can be expressed by all notional parts of speech. It is important that both communicants should clearly perceive that the exaggeration serves not to denote actual quality or quantity, but signals the emotional background of the utterance. The most important function of hyperbole is the emotional expressiveness. If this reciprocal understanding is absent, hyperbole turns into a mere lie. Hyperboles often create the pathetic and comic effect. Literature has an urgent necessity of the artistic exaggeration of reflection of the world. I will do anything in the world to ensure your happiness. And now about understatement. When it is directed the opposite way, when the features of the object are not overrated but intentionally underrated, we deal with understatement. English is well known for its preference for understatement in everyday speech. For example, I'm rather annoyed instead of I'm infuriated. The wind is rather strong instead of there is a gale blowing outside. So they are typical of British polite speech, but are less characteristic of American English. So understatement deliberately expresses an idea as less important than it actually is, either for ironic emphasis or for politeness and tact. The degree, significance, or quality involved is reduced, either for the purpose of ironic emphasis, as we have already mentioned, or for the sake of politeness. A common application is to emphasize something that already involves an extreme situation. I'm not ignorant of Shakespeare. It's lightheadedness expressing an understatement. And I know a fair amount about Shakespeare. I've been studying it for 20 years. It's understatement, but no lightheadedness.